Hello, all you freedom-loving people. The reactions to President Trump's speech to Congress last night were polarized across the aisle as he highlighted the successes in his first 6 weeks and what to expect in the next 4 years. Okay, let's get into it. President Trump's speech to a joint session of Congress on Tuesday night was the first in 5 years. In this speech, he described his accomplishments in the first 6 weeks since he returned to the White House and his vision for the administration. He said that he would work to build the freest civilization in the world. Even without focusing on the content of President Trump's speech, we could see the partisan clashes that night were exceptionally intense from the reactions of the legislators on both sides of the aisle. The speech drew repeated applause from Republicans, but also backlash from Democrats.
And once again, I look at the Democrats in front of me, and I realize there is absolutely nothing I can say to make them happy or to make them stand or smile or applaud. Nothing I can do. I could find a cure to the most devastating disease, a disease that would wipe out entire nations, or announce the answers to the greatest economy in history, or the stoppage of crime to the lowest levels ever recorded. And these people sitting right here will not clap, will not stand.
A high-profile confrontation erupted within minutes of the speech. Texas Democratic Representative Al Green, a 77-year-old liberal legislator from Houston, suddenly stood up and loudly argued that President Trump lacks a mandate. Speaker Johnson, who was sitting at the podium behind President Trump, warned members are directed to uphold and maintain the quorum in the House and to cease any further disruptions. But when Green would not back down, Johnson further asked him, "Take your seat." Members are engaging in willful and continuing breach of the quorum, and the chair is prepared to direct the Sergeant-at-Arms to restore order to the joint session. Mr. Green, take your seat. Take your seat, sir. Take your seat. However, Green refused to comply, and eventually Johnson ordered the House Sergeant-at-Arms to remove Green from the chamber. The Democratic leadership was quite upset by this scene. They all looked sullen as Green was escorted out of the meeting. Republicans, however, had a much lighter reaction, sending Green off with a chorus of "Hey, hey, hey, goodbye." The Green incident was one of the more dramatic episodes of the night, but other stunts followed. Shortly afterward, several Democratic lawmakers stood up, turned their backs on President Trump, and displayed T-shirts with the word "resist" on them and walked out of the House chamber. In addition, other Democratic Party members tried to interrupt President Trump's speech. Some Democratic legislators held up signs expressing their criticism and demands, such as "Save Medicaid" and "This is not normal." Representative Rashida Tlaib, a Michigan Democrat, even brought a whiteboard into the chamber and kept writing protest messages against President Trump, such as "No King," during the speech. But President Trump did not seem at all troubled by the protests. Instead, he gave an uncompromising speech, and he reiterated the policies that he has been promoting for the past 6 weeks, and Republicans reacted very enthusiastically to President Trump's speech. They gave him a standing ovation when he mentioned policies such as closing the borders, eliminating foreign aid, and cracking down on wokeness, and then loudly applauded President Trump's America First policies. But the Democrats refused to clap even for the American citizens that President Trump honored. They couldn't stand and clap for steelworkers, farmers, the mothers of children who had been murdered, or the young man with brain cancer. President Trump pointed out the success at the border with the lowest illegal border crossings ever recorded in the $1.7 trillion of new investment in America in the first 6 weeks. He also pointed out that tax cuts were promised to Americans and how tariffs will encourage businesses to return to U.S. soil, and how DOGE has discovered that $500 billion in fraudulent payments are made annually, and how arrests of criminal gangs will help make America safe again. Conservative Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene is probably one of President Trump's most ardent supporters. She stood out in the crowd wearing a red hat with "Trump was right about everything" on it. When President Trump introduced Elon Musk as the head of the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, and he talked about DOGE's achievements, Republicans stood up and applauded President Trump and Elon Musk. But the Democrats were not pleased. The polarized response of both parties to President Trump's speech is a microcosm of American society today. According to the Pew Research Center, Americans are also polarized on the future of the economy, with 73% of Republicans believing that the U.S. economy will improve in the coming year, and with 64% of Democrats predicting a worsening of the economy. President Trump ended his speech by looking to the future by saying that it's our turn to take America's destiny into our own hands and begin the most thrilling days in the history of our country. This will be our greatest era with God's help over the next 4 years. We are going to lead this nation to even greater heights and forge the freest, most advanced, most dynamic, and most dominant civilization ever to exist on the face of this earth. We are going to create the highest quality of life by building the safest, wealthiest, healthiest, and most vital communities anywhere in the world. We are going to conquer the vast frontiers of science. We are going to lead humanity into space and plant the American flag on the planet Mars and far beyond. We are building an incredible future because the golden age of America has only just begun. It will be like nothing that has ever been seen before. But there will be challenges along the way. Recently, Amir Ali, the U.S. District Judge for the District Court of Columbia, temporarily blocked President Trump from canceling foreign aid contracts, and on Wednesday morning, the Supreme Court ruled that the Trump administration must release the $1.9 billion in foreign aid payments. Judge Ali claimed that blocking foreign aid funding caused tremendous harm. Last week, he demanded the Trump administration award the payments by 11:59 p.m. February 26. However, the Trump administration appealed to the Supreme Court for an emergency ruling. So the Supreme Court ruled on the issue today, and they directed the federal district court that ordered the federal government to resume payments to clarify what obligations the government must fulfill in order to ensure compliance with the temporary restraining order. The court ruling was 5-4, with Justices John Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett siding with the liberal justices. Justice Samuel Alito wrote the dissenting opinion that was joined by Justice Clarence Thomas, Neil Gorsuch, and Brett Kavanaugh. Alito expressed shock over the new ruling by saying, "Does a single district court judge, who likely lacks jurisdiction, have the unchecked power to compel the government of the United States to pay out and probably lose forever $2 billion taxpayer dollars?" The answer to that question should be an emphatic no, but a majority of this court apparently thinks otherwise. I am stunned. Representative Thomas Massey also reacted to the ruling and called on Congress to take immediate action to defund USAID. But it wouldn't be totally accurate to say that the Democrats didn't applaud once during President Trump's speech. They applauded when President Trump talked about Europe and the Middle East.
But a lot of things are happening in the Middle East. It's a rough neighborhood, actually. I'm also working tirelessly to end the savage conflict in Ukraine. Millions of Ukrainians and Russians have been needlessly killed or wounded in this horrific and brutal conflict with no end in sight. The United States has sent hundreds of billions of dollars to support Ukraine's defense with no security, with no anything.
But at the same time, President Trump wasn't bragging about these as American accomplishments.
Do you want to keep it going for another 5 years? Yeah, you would say Pocahontas says yes. $2,000 people are being killed every single week. More than that.
President Trump does want to end the Russian-Ukraine war as soon as possible, but he didn't expect the first resistance to come from Ukraine. After President Trump announced the suspension of military aid to Ukraine, things seemed to take a turn for the better yesterday afternoon, but the White House says it's fake news. On Tuesday, Zelensky said on X that Ukraine was ready to sign a minerals agreement. At 2 p.m. yesterday, Reuters reported that the U.S. and Ukraine were planning to sign a minerals agreement and that President Trump would announce the development in his address to Congress. However, at 5:30 p.m., Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent told Fox News there are no plans to sign an agreement at this time. Then it was reported no deal has been finalized and that President Trump and his advisors have no plans to sign any deal. President Trump is now insisting on a bigger and better deal. In his evening address to Congress, President Trump confirmed that he had received a letter from Zelensky.
Today I received an important letter from President Zelensky of Ukraine. The letter reads, Ukraine is ready to come to the negotiating table as soon as possible to bring lasting peace closer. Nobody wants peace more than the Ukrainians, he said. My team and I stand ready to work under President Trump's strong leadership to get a peace that lasts. We do really value how much America has done to help Ukraine maintain its sovereignty and independence. Regarding the agreement on minerals and security, Ukraine is ready to sign it at any time that is convenient for you. I appreciate that he sent this letter, just got it a little while ago. Simultaneously, we've had serious discussions with Russia and have received strong signals that they are ready for peace. Wouldn't that be beautiful? Wouldn't that be beautiful?
But whether or not the mineral deal will be signed, some of President Trump's objectives have already been accomplished. President Trump has been calling on European countries to increase their defense budgets. This time, Europe is so worried that the U.S. will abandon Ukraine that it has unanimously expressed its willingness to take on more responsibility. On the one hand, this is to make Ukraine not lose confidence, and on the other hand, it is also to show the Trump administration their willingness to cooperate positively. President Trump does want to end the Russia-Ukraine war. One purpose is to save the lives of the young people involved on both sides, and the other purpose is to focus on a more dangerous enemy, the Chinese Communist Party. U.S. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth made it clear that the U.S. was going to use its resources against the CCP. Neither will America intervene in the current conflict between Russia and Ukraine, nor will it intervene in the possible re-conflict between the two sides after the truce. The United States has continued to strengthen its military alliances with Japan, South Korea, and the Philippines in order to counter the CCP, so as to safeguard the major interests of the United States in the Indo-Pacific region. The United States and Europe formed NATO originally in response to the former Soviet Union and the Warsaw Pact organization. Now the U.S.'s most significant adversary is the CCP. The United States can continue to protect Europe, but it also needs Europe to cooperate and support the United States in its fight against the CCP. This is also one of the reasons why President Trump asked Europe to increase its national defense expenditure. This involves the core interests of both sides. If Ukraine and the U.S. sign a mineral agreement, then the war can be said to have come to a halt, as Russia will surely act cautiously. And since Ukraine did not sign a mineral agreement with the U.S., the White House may announce its withdrawal from coordinating the peace talks. This would mean that the U.S. can focus on dealing with the CCP. And since the United States is willing to resume normal diplomatic relations with Russia, Russia has also responded favorably to the United States by offering more favorable terms and conditions to become a supplier of minerals to the United States. But Moscow is competing not only with Kiev, but also with the CCP. Therefore, Putin is bound to keep his distance from the CCP rather than strengthen the alliance, much less join the CCP against the U.S. So Zelensky will benefit the Ukrainian people if he makes the right choice, but if he makes the wrong choice, it won't affect the larger world picture. And since it's still unclear what decision Zelensky will make, the Trump administration temporarily has paused the intelligence cooperation with the Ukraine. Today, CIA Director John Radcliffe confirmed that the pause on the military front and the intelligence front is temporary, and he stressed that he thinks that the United States will likely again work shoulder to shoulder with Ukraine. According to an internal document that was obtained by the Voice of America, the United States draws a clear distinction between the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP, and the Chinese people. This approach is largely consistent with the U.S. State Department's public messaging during the late stages of President Trump's first administration. In a recent guidance document on China-related terminology, Secretary of State Marco Rubio instructed U.S. embassy and consulate posts to use more specific descriptive terms and to avoid the use of Chinese, when the use of the adjective Chinese could imply negative connotations about the broader Chinese people, culture, or language. Prior to these latest directives, the U.S. Department of State website removed references to People's Republic of China when referring to the Chinese government. Today's list of facts simply refers to the country as China. This internal document instructs the U.S. State Department to use the term CCP when discussing government actions in public speeches or press releases, recognizing that the CCP has ultimate authority over China's political, economic, military, and many other decisions. In describing China's malicious acts, the paper suggests that the word Chinese not be used as an adjective to avoid creating the impression that the United States government is blaming the Chinese people for these acts. The document also suggests that the Communist Party leader Xi Jinping should be referred to as the Communist Party's General Secretary rather than President, reflecting the CCP's supremacy over the government. In Beijing, CCP officials expressed strong dissatisfaction and resolute opposition to the changes made to the factual list by the United States State Department, accusing the United States side of advocating the so-called Sino-United States strategic competition. Then, late on Tuesday, in a post on X by the Chinese embassy in the U.S., the embassy wrote, "If war is what the U.S. wants, be it a tariff war, a trade war, or any other type of war, we're ready to fight till the end." In response, Pete Hegseth, the Pentagon chief, said in an interview on Fox News, "Well, we're prepared. Those who long for peace must prepare for war. That's why we're rebuilding our military. If we want to deter war with the Chinese or others, we have to be strong, and that president understands peace comes through strength."
To find out about what's going on wrong with recruitment, and he says there's already a difference in 7 weeks.
Well, the brave men and women of America have stepped right up. When they see who their commander-in-chief is, what his focus is, back to basics, warfighting standards, accountability, and readiness, they're ready to raise their right hand and join the U.S. military. And from the Marine Corps to the Army to the Air Force to the Navy, we've seen record numbers across the country of Americans saying, I want to serve under the commander-in-chief, President Trump. So it was a cool moment to hear him announce that there. The military has responded. It's a renaissance in the Pentagon, for sure.
And after the tariffs went into effect for Canada and Mexico on March 4th, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau called President Trump today to ask what can be done. Trudeau suggested that the fentanyl situation had gotten better, but President Trump said that it was not good enough. After the call, President Trump made 2 posts on Truth Social. He wrote, "The call ended in a somewhat friendly manner. He was unable to tell me when the Canadian election is taking place, which made me curious, like what's going on here. I then realized he's trying to use this issue to stay in power. Good luck, Justin." President Trump also wrote, "I also told Governor Justin Trudeau of Canada that he largely caused the problems we have with them because of his weak border policies, which allowed tremendous amounts of fentanyl and illegal aliens to pour into the United States. These policies are responsible for the death of many people. So again, this is not a trade war, it's a war on drugs." The Hong Kong-based CK Hutchison Industries, which owns the rights to operate the Panama Canal's 2 ports of Balboa and Cristobal, will sell 90% of the rights to the American company BlackRock. The Panama Canal is the second busiest intercontinental waterway in the world, and it is vital to the flow of global trade. This is especially true for trade with the United States, as 2/3 of the cargo that passes through the waterway goes to and from North America. For more than 2 decades, CK Hutchison has been operating the 2 ports. Other ports on the canal are operated by companies from the United States, Taiwan, and Singapore. The growing influence of the CCP in Panama and the Panama Canal in recent years has aroused the concerns of the U.S. government. Hong Kong companies are puppets of the CCP in the eyes of Washington. Under intense pressure from the Trump administration, it's only natural that C.K. Hutchison would withdraw from Panama's harbor. The treaty between the United States and Panama provided that the canal should remain permanently neutral. But under the agreement, the United States reserved the right to defend the neutrality of the canal by force. Frank Sixt, the C.K. Hutchison co-managing director, said that the transaction was the result of a rapid, discreet, but competitive process in which numerous bids and expressions of interest were received. The deal should deliver cash proceeds in excess of $19 billion to the group, and the transaction is the largest infrastructure deal in BlackRock history. In addition to the Panama port assets, the deal also includes an 80% controlling interest in C.K. Hutchison's global port network, spanning 43 ports in 23 countries. But the deal does not include Hutchison Port Holdings Trust, which operates ports in Hong Kong, Shenzhen, and South China. And that's a wrap for this episode. Thank you so much for your support of Front Page. Please remember that every like, comment, and share helps more people to see the truth. If you haven't already, please subscribe. And if you have already subscribed, we thank you. But please double check to make sure that you're still subscribed, because some of our audience have reported that they're somehow unsubscribed without their knowledge. We've also heard that many of you don't get notifications of our videos anymore on YouTube. So when you do subscribe on YouTube, please make sure to tap the notification bell as well. Okay, this is our show for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you heard today, please don't forget to like this video and share it with your friends and family, because everybody deserves to know the truth.